What I'm going to do in this session is to spin up a Kubernetes cluster using Kubespray. The reason I'm doing this is because there seems to be a lot of people out there who are rolling their own scripts to do this using Bash. And there's an incredibly simpler way of doing that, and I'm going to show you how to do that now. So what I have is, if I look in my host file, so I've got a number of virtual machines set up. So I've got 2 virtual machines with master in the name. They will host my master nodes, and I have 4 virtual machines with worker in their name, and they will host my worker nodes. And then finally at the bottom, the machine corresponding to the IP address with a final octet of 9. That is this machine that I'm logged into at the moment. That's where I'm going to drive all of this from. If the IP addresses seem a bit strange to you, that's because in order to keep on the right side of the security people where I work, I'm using a software firewall which uses network address translation to actually hide the real IP addresses. Okay, so let me run through what I will do. So to start off with, all my virtual machines are set up. In order to use Kubespray, you need to be able to SSH from the machine that you're going to drive it from to the virtual machines or machines that will host your Kubernetes cluster nodes. So you use SSH keygen to generate a key, okay, and then you use SSH copy ID to copy that onto each machine. And then I'm using something called keychain, and what that does is that allows me to SSH onto each master and worker host without having to enter the SSH password each time. And in order to make that work, I've added 2 lines to the end of my .bashrc file. Okay, so let's come out of this. So to start off with, I need to install Git. And it would help if I use sudo. Okay, so that is Git installing. Also, because Kubespray is Ansible, so I'll ultimately use Ansible. I'll invoke an Ansible playbook. It's based on Python. So something else that I will need to install is apt install is, if I get it the right way around, is pip. Okay, and I think I already have that in actual fact. Okay, so I've got the 2 prerequisite packages installed. So the next thing to do is to actually clone the Kubespray repo. So I'm going to cheat slightly. So I've already done this before on this machine, but I've rolled it back, and I've done that in order to make sure it all works. So what I like to do quite a bit is I like to use this alias. So all this does is it just saves me a bit of finger work when grepping through my history. So we can see here that I've run this command in the past, and what this will do is this will create a Kubespray directory which will contain all the playbooks, the inventory and configuration files to deploy my cluster. So let's give that a go. So, good to my word, I've now got a Kubespray directory. So let's go in there. Let's ls the YAML files. Okay, so we've got a bunch of YAML files in there. I'm not going to talk you through every single one. I'll talk you through the main ones. So cluster.yaml is what will be used to actually deploy a cluster. Remove node does pretty much what it says on the tin. That will remove a node from the cluster. Scale to add a node. Reset to tear down a cluster. Recover control plane to rebuild the master nodes. And upgrade cluster to upgrade a cluster. Okay, we've got an Ansible configuration file, ansible.cfg. Let's VI that. Okay, so. And we will add log equals kubespray.log. Okay. So when we run the playbook to create the cluster, all the logging will go into that file. Also, we've got an inventory directory. Okay, so cats. Okay, so this is an example inventory. So generally speaking, when you run an Ansible playbook, it uses two main things. One of those things is a playbook that contains all the steps that Ansible is going to run for us, and the other thing is an inventory which contains information on the hosts that the playbook is going to be executed against. So what I need to do next is I need to copy this directory. So let's just go back a bit. Okay, so I can say cp -r Kubespray inventory sample Kubespray inventory, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to call my deployment CA-BDC K8 cluster. So let's run that. That seems to have gone through okay. So we've got the inventory file, and I'm going to cheat slightly because what I've already got in my home directory is, to use a well-known expression from a kids program from my childhood, I've got one that I've prepared earlier. So let's copy that over. the one that's in this directory. So I'll say inventory.ini okay, so that's got my IP addresses in for my virtual machines. So far, so good. So one more thing I need to do is there's a requirements.txt file, and what that contains is a number of packages that I need to install. So what I can do is I can say pip3 install -r requirements.txt. Okay, and I'll just put a sudo in front of that. Okay, so I can say Ansible. Okay, so Ansible's been installed. One small thing. When pip3 installs Ansible, the Ansible binary will end up in user local bin. You need to make sure that your path environment variable picks that up. And the way you do that is, if we say cat.profile, so right at the end, these last 3 lines, we check if user local bin exists, and if it does, we add it to the path. So it's as simple as that. And if you change the path or anything in the environment, anything in your .profile, anything in your bash.rc file, what you can do is you can reinitialize your environment to pick those changes up just by saying new group minus. So I think everything's in place, and what we can do now is we can run the playbook. Okay, so this is the command that we need. So I'm going to copy that, and it'll help if I copy the whole lot all the way till the end. I'm going to cd into my Kubespray directory, and then I'm going to run it. Okay, so you'll note that we've got this become user root, because this does require some root super user permissions. So I'll give that a try. It will ask for the password. Okay. So this will take around 20 minutes or so to run. When you see the final recording, what I'll do is I'll perhaps speed up elements of it and perhaps even chop bits out, because obviously, you know, it's not going to make for entertaining viewing, you know, just watching 20 minutes worth of these messages scroll down the screen. But at the end, what we should end up with is a Kubernetes cluster. We should get like a summary section in logging information to say that the cluster's been created okay. So the beauty of this is that it does all the legwork for you. So things like creating and copying certificates. In my day job, for people that have wanted to deploy big data clusters, they've followed the instructions around using kubeadm, and for one reason or another they've found that they've ended up with a Kubernetes cluster which isn't fully baked. This does everything for you. So note that I'm not having to download container images. I'm not having to download binaries. I'm not having to mess around with certificates. Even things like the etc host file on each node host, Kubespray will look after all of that for us. So I'm just going to shut up for a bit now. I'm going to let this do its thing, and then hopefully in say 10-15 minutes time we'll have a brand new shiny pristine Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so this looks good. This looks like the creation of our cluster has gone through okay. In the play recap section, what I would be looking for, which would tell me that there's problems, would be ones in the column with the failed equals in. Next step. So the next thing I need to do is I need to install kubectl. So let's do that. Let's do that using the using snap. Snap install kubectl. Okay. Snap install kubectl. If you must know how to proceed, repeat. Okay, so let's add classic. Okay, so kubectl is installed. One final thing that we need to do is we need a context for accessing our cluster. We have a directory called .kube, and that is the default location where kubectl will pick a context up from. Let's go into that. Okay, so we have a config already. Okay, that I think isn't going to be any good for accessing our cluster. So when I do this, I should get an error. I should get an error. Ordinarily that should return pretty rapidly. So what I need to do is I need to get a new config file from somewhere, and there's a really easy way to do that. So if I SSH onto one of my masters, ZCA BDC master 1, yes. Okay, and I can go to cd etc Kubernetes, and I believe it's the admin.conf file that I need. So let's just cat that, admin.conf. Okay, let's try sudo. Okay, so that's the file that I need. I'm going to do something a bit quick and dirty. I'm going to say sudo chmod 777 admin.conf. Okay, I'm going to control D out of that, and I'm going to scp bdc user at zca bdc master 1 etc Kubernetes admin.conf, and I'm going to copy that over the top of my config file. Okay, so okay, so let's try that command again to look at the nodes in our cluster. Okay, bang, it's there straight away. Okay, so in that brief demo, what I wanted to get across to you was how easy it is to spin up a Kubernetes cluster using Kubespray. I was thinking of all sorts of titles for this